Yes, this is now tarot lesson number 139, and it's called fortune-telling, storytelling. So I want to talk a little bit about this before we look at the interpretations offered by Dementia and Scott about the Celtic cross that we're looking at the moment. And so first, though, thank you very much for the comments that you left wishing Susan well. You might think that maybe it doesn't make any difference, but I think in this case it does, and it did, and it has made a difference. All the numbers are going in the right direction, and she's kind of more normal now, and we'll start the physiotherapy exercises next week, at the beginning of the week, I think. Up until now, it's been cardiac or coronary care. Now it's back to post-surgery, getting back together, getting back on her feet. And so the reason I'm saying this is because I'll look a little bit at the cards here. The point of this video is fortune telling, storytelling, and you can turn a card. In this case, I'd like to begin with the Hanged Man reversed, which was the final outcome. You can look at the card and do fortune telling, where you make a prediction, or you give a blanket statement, or you give a kind of typical meaning of the card. So the fact that the Hanged Man is upside down at the end, there is going to be extra delay, right? So you can say that's like fortune telling. Yes, you're going to be hanged upside down for longer than you want, or you're going to be in a situation where you're not that comfortable for longer than you might want, because the Hanged Man is hanging upside down, but it's reversed, so it's going to take longer. And that's the kind of fortune telling answer or meaning of the card. But then you can also do storytelling, where you can look at the basic meaning, or you can look at the fortune telling answer and think about the story of how that card came up, or how that card gives an answer to the question. And so I'd kind of like to look at storytelling for some of these things. So I'd like to begin with this Hanged Man reverse, and just talk a little bit about it. Not that I'm saying it's always going to be like this, but it's because of the questioner, or because it's about Susan, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. So the Hanged Man, if you look at it, you get the person hanging upside down. So this person, represented by the card, is looking at the world from a different angle. They're looking at the world from a different perspective than most people. So they see the world through different eyes, or they've got a different understanding of the world and what's going on in the world. So the fact that it was upside, I thought, I tend to be optimistic anyway, and tend to look on the bright side or the positive side of everything and anything, because why not? And so the Hanged Man, because it's upside down, it struck me, or it seemed to me, that if Susan takes the conventional way and looks at medicine in the normal kind of a way, it's going to take longer to recover. But if she can be different and look at the world through her own eyes, or look at the world through kind of opposite way of thinking, she's going to get better quicker, and that's the way to go. And that's partly why I wanted to begin with your thoughts, that you might think, you heard the video and you thought, well, I wish her well, and it would maybe took you 1 second to come up with that, or to think that thought. Somehow that thought, even though it was 1 second in length, I think all added up and has had an impact, because of this last card being the Hanged Man reversed. Susan is sensitive to or aware of invisible messages or invisible influences. And I say this partly because when she was 10 or 11, she stayed overnight at a friend's house, and she stayed in a bedroom with 2 single beds. And in the morning, she said to her friend, "Who was the old lady in the other bed?" And the old lady in the other bed happened to be the dead grandmother. The grandmother had been dead for like 2 years. Susan saw her. So she's some people do. Some people see ghosts, or some people see angels. And Susan is kind of, like that. And that's partly why I may be taking liberties, but that's why I'm looking at the Hanged Man upside down as being somebody who benefits from invisible support. And I say support because what may come was the 6 of Pentacles. And here you've got people in need, or one person in need, and you've got a generous individual helping them out by giving them what they need. You put that idea of somebody needing help and getting it, put that together with the Hanged Man reversed, and you've got positive beneficial outcomes, or a good line of development. We've got 6 of Coins here. The card for the influence of other people is the Queen of Pentacles, the same suit. So that you, when I say you, I mean those of you who left a comment, or those of you who, when they heard the story about the heart attack, thought, "I wish her well," even for a millisecond. That's you. And that's you, the influence of other people as well. Initially, I thought this is going to be the nursing staff and the doctors and the various people involved in the surgery and the recovery. But I think in a wider context, because this card is here, I think this is you as well, having a good influence and having an uplifting, balancing effect on the situation and on Susan's situation. And I'm represented, or the questioner, in this case me, is represented by the 9 of Pentacles. So it's a bit like you and me and everybody, we're all kind of on the same page because we're represented by the same suit. And that's something you can, maybe with a Celtic cross, when you see the same suit in different positions, you can make a connection between those 2 different areas of life, or those 2 types of meaning, where this is a possible line of development, the influence of other people. They go together so that other people can help bring about harmony. The 6 of Pentacles is harmonious and beneficial and helpful and valuable because it's coins. So, and that is helped. Or if this had been the Queen reversed, then this could have happened, but other people wouldn't have been much help, or other people wouldn't have been much of a contribution. And so it was more like a solitary effort, or a solo effort here, because other people are not much help. I may have wanted to be helpful because the suit's the same, but other people generally, maybe the nursing staff, maybe friends and neighbours, would have thought, no, she's done for. She's never going to make it. It could have been that kind of that kind of thinking. Not, yes, we want you to fail, we want you to suffer, but more, I don't think she's going to make it. That kind of brief negativity. But here, because the Queen is upright, then good thoughts, good thinking, good vibrations, good energy being sent to her. So this all be after I laid the spread, and I was sitting waiting around and for hospitals and buses and trains and so on. I found myself looking at this, or thinking about this 8 of Cups, and I wondered, the 8 of Cups. If somebody were designing the 8 of Cups, how come you've got 5 cups and 3 cups? Why not 4 and 4? Because 4 and 4 is 8 as well. So I must remember to come back to the bridge. And I was going to do the bridge first, then this. But we've got the 5 of Cups and the 3 of Cups. And so the Five of Cups is here, and the Three of Cups is here. So maybe instead of looking at 5 and 3, we remember the Five of Cups is here, and you've got defeat or disappointment or something going wrong because 3 of the Cups have been knocked over, disappointment. And at the same time, the Three of Cups is a card of celebration. And maybe that's why, going back to the idea of fortune telling, the Eight of Cups shows change and movement away from a situation. Why? Or what else is going on? Maybe because the 5 is here and the 3 is here. Maybe because you deal with disappointment and you deal with celebration, but you're not meant to be taken in by one or the other. There's a line in If by Rudyard Kipling where he says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat these two impostors just the same. So triumph is here, the Three of Cups. Disaster is the Five of Cups. But they're both impostors. They're not totally to be taken seriously. There's another side to them. So the idea of triumph is great, but it's not going to last, or it's not the whole story. The idea of disaster is not the whole story either. And maybe the what's going on with the atmosphere of the question is, rather than be taken in by or look for celebration or be disappointed by upset, move on beyond these two, this dualistic way of thinking. Things are either good or bad. And instead of thinking this is either good or bad, think it's neither good nor bad. That's Shakespeare. There's nothing good, nothing bad, but thinking makes it so. And so maybe this Eight of Cups is about getting your thinking straight and not being taken in by the apparently good or the apparently bad, because of the way that we've got the 8 cups set up, 3 and 5. And the other thing I thought was, if it's a horoscope, of course, there's a horoscope. That's sunrise, sunset, and this is noon and midnight. So if you've got a cup upright, let me do it like that. There's a goblet or a cup, and it's upright. But these three of these cups here, they've been knocked over and they're lying on their side, as if you've got a cup like this lying on its side. Or it could be this way, right? So this is a cup that's upright. This is a cup that's fallen over. And so if the cup has fallen over, you're going from noon, right, to sunrise. You're going back in time. So maybe with a cup that's on its side or with a reversed cup, it's partly what you do is it may be necessary to go back in time, to go back and reconsider how you got to that position, or what happened earlier, or what happened before, or what led up to the cup being knocked over. Because we're going back from noon to sunrise. At the same time, the cup may have fallen forward, so to speak, and you're going from noon to sunset. So sunset's the end of the day. So with cups that have fallen over, or cups that are maybe reversed, on the one hand, consider how you got there and go back in time, but also understand it's time to move on. It's time. The day has come to an end, and it's time for a new beginning, because the cup has fallen this way. So that was the 3 and 5. The other thing is, if you notice, I was thinking of the 5. I'll tell you this anyway. With the 5, there's a bridge. In my mind, there was a bridge here, but I'll talk about the bridge anyway, because we've got the 5 here. Here, there's an expression. Let's say you're talking with somebody about the future, and you imagine something going wrong, and they say to you in English, I don't know if it's in other languages, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. meaning there's no point in trying to figure out future difficulties. If there's a future difficulty, we'll deal with it when it comes up. And so the reason I thought there was a bridge here, but there isn't. So with this particular card, with the Five of Cups, you're going to cross that bridge later. So the Five of Cups is about now and what's in your immediate environment, what's happening now and what's happening maybe tomorrow or next week, not 2 months from now or 3 months from now. So because of the bridge, we cross that bridge later. By contrast, this is why I've got these cards out. With the Three of Batons, you've got looking into the distance. The Three of Batons is more about long-term development and long-term future because the person's looking into the distance. And that can be distance in space or time. In the same way, we've got the Two of Batons, the fellow standing on a high tower or high building, looking into the distance. So whereas the Five of Cups is about short-term future and dealing with now and next week, with the Three of Batons and the Two of Batons, you're dealing more with the long-term development or the long-term goal or the situation you want to get to in the distant future or the more distant future. And in the same way, I brought out the Chariot because the Chariot somehow seems to be about long-term future and long-term goals and objectives and how you're going to get there. So that was what I wanted to look at now. So think about fortune-telling and storytelling. The difference between looking at a card like here, the Five of Swords, maybe that's an individual, and so the fortune is you win some, you lose some. So maybe you're going to be the winner, but maybe you're going to be the loser. And then you look at the card and you tell the story or tell a story, and this can be a story that you went through in your own life, in your own situation, or it can be a story that you heard from somebody else. It's a quote maybe that sums up a whole way of thinking and that you can pass on the quote and the story, the background story of the quote and how it makes sense for you or how it made sense for somebody else. So you can do the fortune telling, but if you add the storytelling as well, you give the questioner more information or more to go on or a better understanding of what's going on and how to deal with it. Because sometimes you can be in a difficult situation and you know you're in a difficult situation, but you want to feel that you've got some control or some kind of power to make things turn out the way you want. And by you, the reader, telling a story connected with the card, and trust yourself, you've got thousands of stories that you know that you probably never used or never told anybody. But if you look at this card and you remember a story, rather than think, well, I'm not going to mention that, you wouldn't have thought of the story in the first place if you weren't meant to pass it on to the questioner. So just talk and listen to what you say and make a connection for yourself, because the question is going to make a connection between the story you tell and their situation. It's going to make sense to them, and they're going to go off after the reading stronger and better and more optimistic and with a greater sense that they can actually do something about a situation. They may have felt powerless at the beginning of the reading, but they're not going to feel the same way at the end, because of what you've done with the card. So that was it for today. So next time I will look at Dementia and Scott's comments or interpretations of the Celtic Cross spread. But you, in the meantime, think about it for yourself. What would you do? What now might you suggest or interpret with that particular spread, given the cards that came up, and giving your own take on the tarot and how to read it. That was it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a few days. Okay? Bye-bye.